Welcome back. The Senate still negotiating as we speak its $2 trillion stimulus bill, but a vote expected maybe this evening or at least first thing tomorrow morning. I want to bring in someone who will have a vote on that, Senator Bob Menendez, Democrat from New Jersey. All right, Senator, tell our audience what is going to be in this package.
Well, Richard, the final details are being negotiated as we speak, but if the package moves forward the way we've negotiated it, it will, first of all, do the most important thing, which is give the resources to our hospital and health providers who are at the front line of dealing with COVID-19. So we're hoping that this package will have about $100 billion for hospitals and healthcare workers across the country. We believe there will be a robust stabilization fund for states and counties. We also want to take care of families and individuals who have been affected negatively. So Democrats have fought for one of the largest unemployment insurance compensation that we've ever seen, longer in time, bigger in amount to help individuals get through this period of time. There'll also be some direct cash payments to individuals. The amount is roughly around $1,200 to an individual, plus another $500 per child. There's a several $100 billion package for small businesses that will be not only very generous in the size, but also in the terms, so that they can keep their employees employed. And there's a particular benefit for those who retain their workers. Those are some of the elements of this package. There's a lot more to it. And, that's what we've been fighting for.
So what were the holdups? I know there were several items, but one of the concerns was that Congress, wouldn't have oversight here of at least $500 billion from what at least we had heard, that it was going to be the discretion of Mnuchin, or the president said himself. Is it open-ended still, as you understand it, or not?
Well, that was a big one. Obviously, if you're going to have about $450 billion to be given as a lending facility to larger companies, you want to make sure that, in fact, that there's transparency, that there's no stock buybacks, that there's no corporate compensation that comes from the money, and that there are protections for workers. And that's the purpose of giving money to companies at the end of the day, so that, yes, they can sustain the company, but they can sustain those who they employ, which are a critical part of the economy. So there'll be a special inspector general just to deal with this fund that will act as a watchdog independently. And there are some other guardrails to ensure that the funding is used for the very purposes that we want in the first place.
So if somebody's watching us from home, Senator, in New Jersey, and they work for a small company whose doors were shuttered and all the people were laid off, with the package that's coming from Washington, I know they'll be helped personally or as a family, but will their employer now hire them back and continue to pay them from funds from the federal government, so they'll be employed once again? How does it work?
Well, again, these are final negotiations, but if the package continues as we envision it, a small business, meaning anyone 500 or less, would be able to get access to SBA 7A loans. These loans would defer payments for up to 1 year. And if the proceeds of the loan were used for payroll, i.e. keeping their employees on, health insurance, rent and utilities, these loans are forgivable. There are other provisions that they'll benefit from, but I look at these as some of the most significant ones.
Senator, you a few minutes ago said that the wealth of this country will come back when we take care of the health of this country. That analogy was reversed last night by the president. The idea that this country, and I've been speaking to people on the front lines in the emergency rooms at hospitals in New York City right now, and it's hardly relegated just to New York, that by Easter, we are going to open up the doors and push the American public back out before we've contained this. I haven't met one single health expert, whether it be an epidemiologist or anyone in between, who thinks this is remotely rational, let alone wise. Please tell me that your fellow senators and folks on the Hill, will tackle the president, as Fauci said that he can't do, but someone will stop him from doing this.
Well, elections have consequences, and he is the president of the United States. But the reality is, I think there will be a hue and outcry against any such action. We are still not even at the apex of the spike. And the only way that we bend the curve, which basically means stops the spread of the virus, is the difficult decisions that Governor Murphy, Governor Cuomo, and others are taking in a leadership way to save lives. And when I see the Center for Disease Control, which I consider a very serious, great history, science-based entity, say that unless we do this, we will lose anywhere between 1.7 to 2.2 million Americans across this country, I take it seriously. I don't know how the president can think otherwise. I hope his advisors will pull him back from that, because all we'll do is prolong the life of the disease, and all we will do is have more people die.
I know you've been behind closed doors trying to hammer out a deal, so you may not have seen this today, but once again, Governor Cuomo all but pleaded with the federal government to use the Defense Production Act. He said they sent him 400 ventilators. He needs 30,000. And he said people, many people will die. And he says New York is America's future. This is hardly where it's going to stop. But yet the White House responded and said, well, the governor basically should have taken care of this himself when these ventilators were cheap 5 years ago. The point is, the president's basically saying the states should figure this out on their own. Beyond being illogical and impractical, where is Washington on this? Will there be a ramp up where it's not an ask but a mandate like we did in World War II? Due respect, I know you're doing everything you can, Senator. We're at March 24th. What the hell are we waiting for?
Well, I was the first member of the Senate to call upon the president to invoke the Defense Production Act because it exists for moments like these. Only the federal government has the power to amass our industrial base and mandate it to do certain things. And it is my hope that he will do that, because when I'm on the phone on behalf of New Jersey, trying to find vendors for N95 masks and ventilators and other things from different parts of the world in my role as a senior Democrat on the Foreign Relations Committee, something is wrong that I and anybody else or governors should have to be doing. This is the purpose of the federal government. There's nothing I can do as a legislator, and this is why it's so important to have the president understand that, yes, we're in a war, and in a war, you become a general and you marshal the resources of the country on behalf of its people. I just hope the president gets to understand that sooner rather than later. And I agree with you. It's frustrating. It's beyond frustrating. It's dire when we hear that choices will be made as to who lives and who dies. That's not necessary if we get the production that we need, both on the ventilators as well as on the critical personal protective gear, and also on the testing. I'm doing all I can by forcing the issues and driving a negotiation that gives us the resources to do it. Then the resources have to be put to work, and that can only be done by the President of the United States.
It does look, to be fair, like today was a positive step in the direction for those displaced in the American public. I just hope the other urgency comes along, at least from the executive branch. Senator, stay well. Thank you, and Godspeed.
Thank you very much.
All right, we heard at the beginning of the program the president talk about how great we were doing compared to South Korea. Well, when we come back from the break, I'll show you ourselves how actually they handled this coronavirus versus us.